welcome fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host, Jones, and I am not.
I just realized everybody is here to party.
Greetings and welcome fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host, Jones, and I am not a radiology technician. Nope, I'm a technologist, and I've been in this field long enough to know that just because you came into my emergency room at 2 a.m. with a chronic back pain times 6 years does not mean the x-ray should be stabbed. This is the Radiology Technologist Podcast for Rad Techs by Rad Techs. Thanks for listening.
Hello everyone, welcome to another, this is going to be a 30-minute show, 30-minute live stream to keep everyone updated on the amazing ThedaCare versus Ascension court case. As the intro said, my name is Ron Jones, Dr. Ron Jones. I am a licensed radiographer. I'm also licensed in CT. I've been to ultrasound school. I've been to RPA school. I am steeped in radiology, love radiology, and my purpose here on this show, this live stream, is to give back my 20 plus years of experience in radiology, help to answer questions for those interested in radiology, and see if we can't extinguish a lot of that misinformation out there that just doesn't need to exist. Now, just a few days ago, I posted a live stream about what's going on between ThedaCare and Ascension. And if you aren't aware and you haven't been watching, what's going on is there was one particular Rad Tech, an IR tech, who decided to go down the street and seek better employment. I mean, how many times have we done that in our careers? They went from ThedaCare to Ascension, I believe it's St. Elizabeth's, if I got that right, and applied for an open position. And once they found out that the pay was much better than what they were getting at ThedaCare, they went back and told their coworkers, hey, not only are they offering more money, but we have a work-life balance issue here, which was stated in the original newscast that I showed on my video a couple days ago. And so what ThedaCare did was they sued Ascension and asked a judge to enact a court order injunction to stop these technologists from starting the new job. They made a case that if 4 out of our, I believe it's 11 technologists and nurses, if 4 of our team leaves, it will severely impact our ability to provide services to the community, and that's unacceptable. It's detrimental to our community. And they asked the judge to stop, at least until they could figure out how to replace them. Asked the judge to stop from allowing them to start their new job, which they were supposed to start today, if I remember correctly. And an interesting place to follow along on this, of course, is Reddit. I found this on a subreddit called Nursing, because there are nurses involved in this as well. You know, there's always nurses in the IR lab. And so the interesting thing to me, I mean, there's several interesting things about this, but if you look at the court-ordered, or actually there was a newsletter, if I can get to it here, not a newsletter, it was a letter with an internal letter in ThedaCare that was posted. It's actually posted on Reddit, but and I apologize if the stream's going a little bit slow. Something's eating up all my CPU processing and slowing me down a little bit. I calculated about a 3-minute lag between what I say and what shows up on the live stream, but nevertheless, if I can hop into my last video 2 days ago that was titled Breaking News, Hospital Suing Competitor to Stop from Paying Higher Wages, there's a newsletter that I read, and I don't need to read it again. You can see the last video for that. But the newsletter basically said, you know, this is unfair to us as a hospital. It's unfair to the community. It's going to force patients to have to go to our competitor. And there's the picture of the letter right there. And we don't like what's going on. And interestingly enough, apparently the judge on Friday said, I'm going to go ahead and grant you a temporary injunction until you guys can work something out. Well, since when does the court system stop employees from leaving a job they don't like and taking a job they do like? And since when do they get in the middle of competitors who, the employees are simply leaving because of bad working conditions? And this temporary injunction is forcing them to stay at a job they don't like. They've already admitted that there's a, quote, work-life balance, end quote, issue, which I pose that means that there's a understaffing issue. So here's the 4 things that I call out right from the get-go. 1, the letter that you're seeing on the YouTube video calls them technicians. Now, these are not technicians, these are technologists. And to those in the know, there's a big difference. To those who don't know what radiologic technologists do, they might not know the difference. But what this tells me is that the HR representative or CEO or whoever it is at ThedaCare who drafted this letter calling them radiologic technicians doesn't even know what to call their own employees. I guarantee it doesn't say technician on their job description. I guarantee it doesn't say technician on their ID badges. This person just clearly doesn't understand the title and the job duties of a radiologic technologist. Now, you don't see them calling the nurses Dr. Helper people. They're calling them appropriately nurses because they know what the nurses do and they're clear in their minds about that, but they don't know what the radiologic technologists do and ergo aren't even calling them the proper name. Second, if the hospital administrators would have offered a decent wage based on current market conditions, the staff wouldn't have been leaving. How often are you working on the job getting paid what you think is appropriate and you decide to go see what's going on down the street, let alone accept the offer down the street? If they would have offered a decent wage based on current market conditions, now I'm not saying that it's irrational, ask for $10 more no matter what. No, you go by current market conditions. Clearly, ThedaCare is underpaying, if the hospital Ascension is offering enough to make them want to leave. Third, whenever work-life balance is brought up, it's a sure sign that the staff is being overworked, most likely through excessive on-call hours due to understaffing. Work-life balance came into the environment probably about 5 to 10 years ago, and it started being addressed by both employees and administrators alike to mean you can't spend all your time here working or you'll burn out. You have to have some life outside of the hospital, outside of your job, to keep you happy, keep you sane, keep a balance in your life, and that's why they call it a work-life balance. So the only reason that these employees who are trying to leave ThedaCare would have brought up work-life balance is if something's off and they are spending too much time at work and not enough time enjoying their life. And the most common thing that happens in the world of radiology is administration, who's always trying to run a thin margin and trying to save as much money as possible. They will understaff the department and put technologists on call so that you start out minimally with the least amount of staff, and as business picks up, as volume picks up, you call in more employees to help out. That's how they keep from overstaffing a department. And there's a fine balance there, and that's the job of the radiology director to know what your volume numbers are, how many staff you should have in line, and how many you should have there every day on a regular basis. But I guarantee you that there was an issue there. If they brought up work-life balance, then there was an imbalance in the amount of hours they were working and the amount of call they were probably taking, which for those that don't know, being on call in the world of healthcare means you work your regular job, and then after you get off work and you punch out or you clock out, you can get called back in to work again. And so what happens in the world of radiology is you may work your 8 to 5 or your 2 to 10, whatever your shift is, and then you take call overnight and come back in the next day to resume your regular shift. Well, if you get called in the night, you can get called in for 2 hours. You can get called in for the entire night, and you're expected. You cannot call off the next day and say, well, I got called in all night, so I'm not going to work today. No, you have to work your shift. And so what happens a lot of times in these IR groups, because there's not a lot of IR techs out there, that IR stands for interventional radiology. It's a subspecialty of radiology. It's typically somebody who starts out in the world of x-rays or radiography, and they get cross-trained to do interventional radiology procedures. It's kind of like a mini operating room. There's a lot of procedures done in there that assist the patient in unblocking vessels, biopsies, a lot of different things. A lot of things can be done in the interventional radiology suite in the radiology department that used to be done in the OR at a much higher cost. It's actually cheaper for the patient to get it done in the IR lab. So these staff are highly specialized. They earn their keep. They are worth their weight in gold. And as we're seeing in this case, this hospital who underpaid their staff is claiming they can't continue to operate and provide for the community without these people. But yet that didn't register to them when they were setting their salaries or giving them their annual raises. Fourth of what I pointed out is apparently, according to these news documents, the original employers had an opportunity to match, they weren't even asked to exceed the offer, they were asked to match the offer from the competitor, and they failed to stop being greedy. They failed to match what the competitor was offering. These employees, as employees, we don't want to leave if we don't have to. If we've worked for an employer for 5 or 10 years, we're comfortable with our surroundings. We're comfortable with knowing where everything is in the hospital, where all of our equipment is, with our protocols, with our EMRs, how everything works with our staff, our peers, our radiologists. The only reason we want to leave is poor management, i.e. underpayment or poor work-life balance. So we want to stay, and I even offer as advice in some of my other blog posts and YouTube videos that when it comes time for negotiation, if you go out and get a better offer, you bring that back if you want to stay there and say, hey, I have been offered an opportunity to go work somewhere else. They've offered me, let's say, $5 an hour more. If you guys are willing to match that, I would consider staying, because I don't mind working here, but how can I say no to an extra $5 an hour down the street? And I think that's a good tactic on behalf of the employee to offer the employer a chance to raise their wages to the market level. And in this particular case, apparently that exact thing happened, but the employer failed to come to terms with the employee. So I can tell you, as a 20 plus year licensed rad tech, I am 100% rooting for these technologists. This rampant greed and wanton disregard for employee well-being is just got to stop. And the only way, besides unionizing, is to quit your job and go somewhere else. So I did about a 50-minute discussion on this the other day, and today we're going to talk about an update. The only real news posted in the past hour about this event is posted on this station here, WBAY, and I'll just read the quick blurb to you. I'm not even going to try to say the county name in Wisconsin because I have no idea. Outagamie. A court hearing is underway, and this was just updated 35 minutes ago, so this is what's going on right now. A court hearing is underway in the hiring dispute between ThedaCare and Ascension in Wisconsin. Action 2 News is in the courtroom. The judge says several witnesses are expected to testify, including employees who are now in limbo, meaning they got blocked from going to start the new jobs today because of this court case, because ThedaCare. And judge, if you're listening out there, all ThedaCare has to do is contact a staffing agency and hire some temporary IR techs to come out and take care of their business while they hire some full-time staff. We've done that for decades. Staffing agencies have existed for decades. You call them up, you say, I need 4 IR techs and 2 nurses. They look over all their books on who's available. They reach out and contact us. They say, hey, would you like to do a 13-week contract out in Wisconsin? And the rub here on ThedaCare is they're going to end up paying over twice the amount for these traveling technologists and nurses than they would have if they'd have just paid an extra $5 an hour to the technologists. But they did it to themselves, so there's no sympathy there. You guys should have paid market value, especially when the employee came back and said, hey, I'm going to leave, but I welcome you to match it, and they didn't. So within a matter of a week, they could have traveling techs there. I mean, there's paperwork that has to be done. I've got articles and YouTube videos on how to become a traveling tech. It's a fascinating job opportunity for nurses and rad techs. It makes more money because it's always because of things like this. People don't pay attention to how to staff. It's always a staffing issue. They don't know how to staff. It's usually offices or hospitals that have an exorbitant amount of people out on maternity leave or vacations or whatever. Or they only have 3 echo techs on staff and two go on vacation and one's out sick or whatever. But that's why staffing companies exist, is to fill these gaps at last minute notice and keep services turned on until you can fix your staffing problem. But I digress. It goes on to say 7 of the 11 members of ThedaCare Stroke Care team accepted positions with Ascension, Wisconsin to work at St. Elizabeth Hospital. So out of those 7, though, that's not all rad techs. This channel's for the rad techs. I believe it was only 4 rad techs and 3 nurses. They were supposed to start the new jobs on Friday. Oh, they're supposed to start last Friday. So now there's 2 days they haven't gotten to go to work and report to work at their new jobs. However, a judge issued a temporary restraining order against Ascension, preventing it. ThedaCare filed for an injunction claiming Ascension recruited the employees. And according to the employee who was interviewed by the news channel on Friday, they were not approached by Ascension. They applied for an open position on the website. And once they found out it was paying more, they went back and told their friends. So ThedaCare operates the only level 2 trauma, not a level 1 trauma, a level 2 trauma and comprehensive stroke unit in the Fox Valley. It says losing these workers could impact its ability to have people on call 24/7, which is necessary for accreditation. Now, what that means, if you don't know, is that thanks to these technologists, these interventional radiology technologists, thanks to all the extra work they've done to become educated and learn how to do IR procedures, and in my experience as a radiology administrator, it takes a good 2 years of on-the-job training. There's no school for doing IR work. It's on-the-job training. And I typically look for 2 years of solid OJT, on-the-job training, before a Rad Tech or any other modality who's cross-training becomes comfortable in the world of IR procedures. So these employees put in plenty of time, plenty of hours learning their craft, and then the hospital goes, well, let's use that to our advantage. Let's apply for Stroke Accreditation, meaning the hospital gets this designation of being a designated stroke center, which means they can bill for things and make money off of things that these technologists can do for them. They get this accreditation, they plaster it in all their marketing and tell the world, we are now stroke accredited and can take stroke patients here at our facilities. But did they offer any more money to the technologists? I think that's a fair question. So you got this accreditation off the backs of the techs. Did you pay them any more? Because apparently they're not happy about their pay. So let's keep that in mind, that this facility was able to gain new services thanks to the employees who I guaranteed weren't paid to go get this further education. They got it as a cross-training opportunity, or they already had it from another job, a prior job. So the ThedaCare workers say they were not recruited. Oh, and it pointed out that there's 24/7 on-call required to be stroke. So you're talking 11 people total. They've already admitted in this news release there are 11 members of an IR team, and they have to be available 24/7, 365, all holidays included. If you know anything about scheduling a department, even if it's not healthcare, how do you cover 24/7 with 11 people? Knowing that you have to have at least 2 technologists and a nurse, that's standard of care, to run an IR suite. 1 tech to work the equipment and to move the table and to capture the images. I mean, it's a very complex piece of machinery. Multiple screens. You can have 8 different screens or more going at the same time in a case. You're looking at a CT of that patient that was done to kind of look at anatomy. You're looking at a live screen of what you're doing in the anatomy. You're looking at a vitals monitor that may show pulse and respirations and whatnot. There's a lot of different things that these radiologists, interventional radiologists, look at during these procedures. So somebody's got to run all that, and then another tech has to kind of be the first assist, the person that hands them everything and gets the next item and takes things from the doctor, puts it on the tray, hands new things to the doctor. And then you need a nurse to administer sedation, the anesthesia, change out the IV bags, different things that the nurses do. So you got 3 people, and let's say they work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. That's three people right there out of the 11. And then you take another 3 to cover the overnight shift so that the people on the day shift can have a break. So there's 6 people covering call and shifts. And then you got the weekend. So you got to have another 3 people covering day shift on the weekend. And then ideally you need somebody to cover the weekend nights as well. So really you're up to about 12 people at that point to have 4 sets of teams, if you will, team A, B, C, and D, covering all these hours. We're already 1 short with 11, and even with the 11, somebody's pulling double duty covering hours in there, because like I said, you got day shift weekdays and day shift weekends, and then you've got nights on weekdays and nights on weekends. That's potentially 4 different groups of people working and being on call. But what they have is 3 groups of people covering 4 different types of shifts, so they're getting overworked, and that's your work-life balance that they're talking about, these employees. So ThedaCare workers say they were not recruited. Speaking with Action 2 News, one member of the team said they applied for a job with Ascension, Wisconsin, and received a much better offer than expected, which led others on the team to apply. Judge Mark McGinnis's injunction ordered Ascension, quote, make available to ThedaCare one invasive radiology. It's not invasive radiology. Oh, invasive radiology technician. It's interventional radiology technologist, guys. And one registered nurse, of course they always get that right, of the individuals resigning their employment with ThedaCare to join Ascension, with their support to include on-call responsibilities or, and we're still in quotations, cease the hiring of individuals referenced until ThedaCare has hired adequate staff to replace the departing IRC team, interventional radiology, care team members, end quote. So if I understand that correctly, that means either you can't have them until they replace them with an adequate team, an adequate and equal team, or you keep one tech and one nurse to run your stuff until you find somebody to replace them. So at least one option allows some people to go to their new job, which totally, I still can't believe they're stopping them. And so that is the current state. At least I believe that's what was said on Friday. So I'll do another update when I find out what happens today and let you know. But this is unprecedented. We in healthcare have known about these deplorable conditions for decades because we've been living in it and working in it. And it wasn't until the past 5 or 10 years that we've been able to claim work-life balance and start catching some breaks. But with COVID and all the things going on with that, and the mandated vaccines and firing techs that don't get it or don't get it on time or whatever, you're seeing a bigger and bigger gap in the staffing of radiology departments because of what I just mentioned. It was already difficult enough to staff these departments with a limited amount of techs coming out of the local schools, and there's not a situation where we can, as administrators of these departments, we can't go to the schools and say, hey, you're putting out too many students, we need twice as many as what you're graduating. The schools are bound by their own rules and regulations, and they can't just arbitrarily change the amount of students they take. So we as radiology administrators have to play this very fine line game of keeping our departments fully staffed while trying to predict the future based on current events. And of course, you want to use statistical analysis on what your volumes have been over the past 5 or 10 years and there can be seasonal volume changes, but for the most part, a radiology administrator knows what kind of volumes are going to come through that department. So I wanted to hop on here. My point here with my channel is to keep everybody as updated as possible on current events. This is a big current event. If they rule this to stop employees from leaving a job they don't like, an unfair job environment, if they stop techs from leaving that and going to a better environment, what do you think that's going to say to all the other hospitals and clinics out there that are worried about losing money due to COVID and trying to find ways to save money? It's going to tell them all that doesn't matter what you're paying, your employees can't leave. They're stuck with you. And I've been in that situation. I was at a hospital once, had been there for about a year. I knew X-ray and CT. I was in the X-ray department. A CT position came open. I said I want to apply for it. They said, nope, we got you right where we need you on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday night shift. It's hard to fill. We're not going to allow you to leave that for at least 5 years. And I wrote them a letter saying, if you're not going to allow me the opportunity to grow and advance in my career, then I'm not going to work here anymore. And they laughed and said, you're not going anywhere, ha ha ha. And I left. And I never looked back. And they were a little irritated that I did it, but you know what? You cannot discriminate on an employee and tell them that you will get zero opportunities for advancement from us until we decide that we can replace you with someone else. And I left. It's called voting with your feet. You vote with your feet when you leave and go somewhere else. And that's exactly what these technologists and nurses did. And so it's abhorrent to me that a judge, of course, what's new, but to tell employees you have to stay in this crappy environment and get underpaid and treated poorly because the hospital can't afford to have you leave. Well, the hospital should have thought of that beforehand. The hospital should have had some PRN staff on board. The hospital should have been cross-training other technologists into the IR. You need to have a revolving door when it comes to cross-training. You need to have people ready to step in and take over should something happen. You're running 24/7 on 11 people. What if one goes on vacation? This always happens. Somebody puts in for vacation, and you can't stop them from taking vacation. I mean, a hospital like ThedaCare probably would. But you let them go on vacation, and then somebody goes out injured or sick with no warning. There you're down 2 out of your 11, so now you're down to 9. And if it's a long-term illness, then you've got issues with staff. Then you're asking your other 9 to pick up even more hours, carry even more burden for no extra pay, no extra benefits, probably not even a kudos or an attaboy. It just needs to stop. And one of the ways to make it stop is unionizing. There are not a lot of unions out there in the world of radiology. You see it over in California for the nurses. The nurses have unionized and they'll hold strikes, and they get things done that way. Somebody's got their backs. But Rad Techs don't have any kind of a system like that. I mean, I think there's some in California, maybe some other places where they're kind of umbrellaed in under the whole union system. But as Rad Techs, we need to come together and start having each other's backs and figuring out how to stop this kind of garbage. I mean, it's really kind of what happened if you think about it. One tech said, "This place sucks. I'm going to go somewhere else and just check it out." And they went and checked it out and went, "Holy cow, look how much more they pay. They get better benefits. I'm going to go try. I better go tell my group, hey guys, did you know, blah, blah, blah." And now we're out of here. And 4 out of 11, which is less than 50%, decided to go down and check it out and accept the job. But now the big bad employer who doesn't want to pay market value is what an average, a conglomeration of what everybody's paying in the marketplace. You got somebody that's underpaying, you can't expect your employees to stay. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit the like button on this video. I appreciate the support you give the channel. I'm going to start doing updates regularly as often as I can, even if it's just 30 minutes in the morning like this. I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate Get Rich Jr. out in the audience, and Detective Awesome are out there. I think we're going to have to cut it there. Yep, I got to get going. I got other stuff. So thanks again for stopping by, and have a great week. And we'll talk to you soon.
I just realized everybody is here to party.
Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host, and I am not a radiology technician. Nope, I'm a technologist, and I've been in this field long enough to know that just because you came into my emergency room at 2 a.m. with a chronic back pain times 6 years does not mean the x-ray should be stabbed. This is the Radiologic Technologist Podcast.